Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska. This your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning to you on this beautiful blue sky, sunny day, this sunny Monday. Wow, what a weekend, huh? What a weekend to, it's a good start to the summer. That's all I'm saying right now. It was a great start to the summer. I know it's mid-June and summer's already, going on and on and on, but it was a great day, weekend, everything else, amazing time. I hope you got out and then got a chance to enjoy it. I was just so pleased. We were down in Homer this weekend, Terry and I, and enjoyed a fantastic day at the Bear Creek Music Festival there, celebrating and supporting the Nikki Fry Scholarship Fund down there for students. It was just an amazing day. You probably can tell by the color I've got on my face. It was pretty amazing down there. I had two of my kids were down in Seward with a friend from outside, enjoying the same kind of weather. And then the rest of the family was here in Wasilla. It was this way all across South Central Alaska all weekend long. Just blue skies and sunshine, just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And I hope you got a chance to go out and enjoy it. It was just amazing. And here we are back at it. 80 degrees in Fairbanks, says Audrey. 80 degrees in Fairbanks this weekend. Well, I'm glad I wasn't quite that warm. It was, nice enough at 65 degrees in Homer for that. But what a beautiful weekend, and maybe this is a good indication that hopefully for the rest of the summer we'll have because let's face it, last summer sucked so hard. It was just, what was there, 4 or 5 nice days in all of last summer? Oh, man. So here we are kicking things off, ready to go, back at it. Appreciate your patience for us being off the air on Friday. We had a lot of stuff going on, and I was stressed out trying to get everything done, and I appreciate you guys being patient with us, and here we are ready to go for the rest of the thing. 73 on the slope yesterday and today, and rain, says Ron. So it's been nice all across the state. I guess bring on the global warming question mark. Is that what it is? Oh, man. Speaking of global warming, we're going to talk about this here in just a bit. We've got some headlines to cover, including the latest from the Democrats' new party platform, which was just published and produced. That's going to lead to some interesting things here this year. The latest in what's going on with the statewide races. We've got some crazy stuff going on down in Anchorage with a big RV company that we'll tell you about that one. Let's see, teachers' retirements are problematic. for this year. Oh, and the big bump stock ban, which we didn't get a chance to talk about on Friday. It came out, and we would have missed it anyway because it came out after the show was on the air. Would have been on the air if I had been on the air on Friday. But the Supreme Court has struck down the bump stock ban, and we're going to talk about that as well. I know normally that's a Firearms Friday thing, but it's a big enough story that I think we should at least cover it and discuss that this morning and kind of go through some of the stuff on that. After we do all the headlines and discussions and yada, 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 then we're going to talk with Representative Sarah Vance, who's going to be joining us. And she's going to come in and chat with us about the session, because we really haven't kind of caught up with her after the end of the session. And then we're going to talk about her candidacy for re-election. We're going to talk about the upcoming session, what she sees being the big deal, and a little bit of everything, little bit of everything and all right. So that'll all be coming up in hour 2 this morning as we proceed ahead on this beautiful sunny Monday, and keep things rolling, along. So I don't know, how about you? What did you guys do this weekend? Did you get a chance to? I mean, were you stuck at the house with a honey-do list? Did you get out and a chance to spend some time out in the great outdoors? Did you get a chance to, hit the beaches somewhere, or were you mowing the lawn all weekend? I mean, I will say that I have, having mowed the lawn on a day like, Saturday or Sunday, that's not the day to do that as you're sweating from one side to the other. But, maybe that's your idea of the Zen moment. That's what you need to do, is go out there and make it happen. I don't know. All right. Well, let's go. Let's start off here with a story that hits a little close to home. Apparently I'm just not in the right place, or maybe I don't know the right people. Maybe I haven't kowtowed far enough to the powers that be. But it seems like Governor Mike Dunleavy has a soft spot for radio talk show hosts. We know that he had tried to bring Mike Porcaro, who is a radio talk show host, into the highly paid position of regulating the state's commercial fisheries. That happened back in May. We know that he has hired in the past the mayor of Anchorage's chief of staff. You ever had that moment where you've just lost the name right off the top of your head? Yeah, I just had that moment. I just had that senior moment where I can't remember her name. I could see her face, I can hear her voice, but I can't remember her name. Anyway, she was a talk show host as well, and worked in the governor's office before going to work in the mayor's office. And of course, probably one of the most infamous ones is Rick Green, who was known on the airwaves for 15 years as Rick Rydell down in Anchorage. And of course, he went to work for the Department of Fish and Game way back early in the governor's tenure in the office. And he is now back up in the spotlight because after Porcaro was declined and rejected by the legislature as the appointee, the Commercial Fisheries Entry Commission, or CFEC's job has now been offered to Rick Green. And Rick Green, of course, as I mentioned earlier, has been known as Rick Rydell for many years. But since he left the airwaves and joined the administration, you haven't really heard anything from Rick. In fact, he's been working as a low-profile special assistant to Alaska's Fish and Game Commissioner Doug Vincent Lang. And he's quietly been diligently working away. So now he has some experience, and it looks like he will probably have a little bit. I don't know if it would be if the wording that I want to use is an easier chance. I think he has a much better chance of being confirmed than a much better chance of being confirmed than Porcaro, because Porcaro had basically zero experience as a commercial fisherman, and was still working. Amy Dombrowski, thank you. Dave's out there to help me. Dave's saving me again. Amy Dombrowski, that's who it was. But Porcaro had basically zero experience in fish and wildlife management. He'd never been a commercial fisherman. He was still running his advertising consulting agency, doing his talk show host and do all that kind of stuff, where Rick basically had cut ties with everything and gone straight to work full time, right in the deal. So he has some experience now in the fish and game. According to Bryce Edgmond, who voted against Porcaro's confirmation last month, here's what he had to say. He said, Green has some experience in the Department of Fish and Game, which will give him more standing with the legislature. It's an important appointment, and I hope it works out this time. So I don't know if that's any indication that because Green actually has some experience on this, we'll see what happens. The Fishery Commission, with 20-some employees, does largely low-key bureaucratic work, including issuing annual commercial fishing permits, granting and denying permit transfers in the event of illness and deaths, and publishing fisheries reports and statistics. But it has drawn some attention from policymakers, according to Nat Herz over at the Northern Journal, because of what critics say is a small workload and a yearly commissioner salary that exceeds $135,000. Now, Dunleavy spokesman described Green as a good fit for the job, saying he gained considerable understandings of fisheries in his work at the Fish and Game Department. Plus, he has been an avid outdoorsman, and admittedly so, for years. Plus, his background and experience in public engagement make him a valuable asset to the CFEC, they said. So it's interesting. Green said in an email back to Nat Herz about his work in the state, he said his work for the state, combined with his personal fishing experience and the time spent in the Anchorage Advisory Committee, make the CFEC a natural extension for what he's been doing overall. Because he also served 3 years on the fishery advisory committees as well. So at least he's got some background on this, whereas opposed to, again, Porcaro had nothing behind it. I think it was more of kind of a blatant, I don't know if it was a finger in the eye, but it kind of felt that way when I first heard about it and I read about it, because I'm like, this doesn't seem really like Porcaro's jam, but who knows? We'll see where it goes from here. Anyway, so that's one of the big first pieces of news that caught my attention. Apparently, I'm not smoothing the right waters, because I'm not getting offered those big $136,000 a year jobs. I mean, come on, Dombrowski, Rick Rydell, Mike Porcaro. I mean, what's a guy need to do? Who's he need to bribe to get a job? Not that I would take the job offer, but it's a thought, right? I'd like to get that offer. Just hit me with it. Hit me with it. $136,000 a year state job, not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. All right, we got to go. We're going to be back. We got more coming up, including the latest from the state Democratic Party platform and how it may make for some tough doing in a state that deals with oil and gas resource development as its primary driver to fund government. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based. Free thinking radio. Enjoy that sunshine.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Oh, man. Hello, my friends. How you doing? How you doing? Just another beautiful day in Paris. I mean, what a gorgeous, just so nice. Just another beautiful, beautiful weekend. I don't think it could have been any nicer. Hey, Jay, Jerica is in the chat room. How you doing there? Long time no see. Sunny and beautiful in the interior most of the summer so far. A little rain, but lots of sunshine and blue skies. 4th of July right around the corner. Let's see. The fog rolled in yesterday afternoon. It hasn't left, says Jeannie down in Kenai Soldotna. Oh, that was nice. Are you about to sell your show to Harold and work for Dunleavy? Well, that's it's tempting, right? Jerica says, while I was away, I never really missed a show because my dad would be texting me throughout your show about what y'all were discussing. He hated your candidate interviews for some reason. Oh, he passed away. I'm so sorry. Oh, so sorry, Jerica. Passed away on May 17th in a plane crash. It was a hard weekend, but we spent family in the lake. Well, I'm so sorry, Jerica. Thank you for coming back, and sorry about that. Let's see. Mosquitoes seem larger. There's been a lot more mosquitoes this year than I've seen in quite a while down here, because usually down here there's almost no mosquitoes. It has been, yeah. To Rick Green's credit, he was a tireless advocate for hunting and fishing, and he's written a book. True. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think he's a much better pick than Picaro. I mean, when I saw the Picaro pick, I was like, that's kind of weird, because that's really, again, not really Picaro's jam. I mean, he's a great guy, but, it's really not his thing. So I thought that was a little odd, but I think Green is a much better pick. And if I was offered a job by the state, I'd have to look myself in the mirror if I decided to do it. Well, yeah, I mean, that again, in a perfect world, I mean, let's face it, if your kid wanted to go to work for the state, what would you say? Would you be like, yes, go work for the state, get all that, retirement money and healthcare benefits and everything? I mean, wasn't that kind of what you would, I mean, I know my son had talked about he'd got a job opportunity with one of the state agencies, and I said, well, if it sounds like something you like to do, it's a great job. You'll never be unhappy about it. I mean, you might be unhappy about it, but you'll always be paid, right? You'll always be paid, or maybe not. We've got one story coming up about the retiring teachers in Alaska that maybe, you won't get. Anyway, it's better than a lot of the private sector jobs, I guess. Definitely better pay in that regard. But anyway, yeah, such a great weekend. I'm bummed out about Jerica's dad. I'm so sorry. That's a tough one. What? What? I lived in Maui for over a year. I never saw a mosquito. I don't know what you're talking about there, Teresa. Teresa said people on Maui said that there's residents that introduced GMO skeeters. Okay. Chris says state employees are the modern day noble class, and then common folks are contentious with the nobility until they become nobility themselves. Yes, that's true. That's true. That's it, Hey, we all aspire to greatness, right? We're all aspiring to something larger, something bigger, something greater. That's what we're all trying for. That's what it's all about. All right. Well, we're going to continue here. We got some other stories we're going to jump into. Let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it. Here we go. Let's go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Oh, man. We're just talking about, being employed by the state. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, my son was looking at a job. He'd had an interview with a state agency and was like thinking about it. And, and I'm like, well, it's, if you think that it's something that you would, enjoy, you definitely, you're going to get paid, right? You're going to get paid, and you pretty much, you pretty much know that your paycheck's always going to be there. Plus you get retirement and healthcare benefits and all that other kind of stuff. So, definitely not a bad job. If it's something you probably should go do it. And I guess, would you be encouraging your kids to go work for the government at this point? At this point, I have to say yes. It's in the state of Alaska, it's the best game in town, right? Now, I wasn't overtly pushing him out to it. I said, sure, it's a good thing if you want, I try and let them make their own decisions. I give them whatever little input that I have, and then I move on from there. But he ended up not doing it. But would you guys be encouraging your kids to get that state job with the retirement match, the tier 4 defined contribution, and healthcare and paid days off and all the other stuff that come with it? I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's a pretty good thing in the long run. Absolutely. I think it's a pretty good thing. All right. Well, let's talk for a second here about, speaking of getting paid by the state. It turns out, remember when they said that the department that handles the benefits and everything else, how they were way behind in paying, things like SNAP benefits and everything else. Well, apparently it's not just the Department for Health and Social Services that's way behind the power curve on this. So when you say, I got a government job, I'm always going to get paid, that may not necessarily be the truth. For Alaska teachers, according to Johnson Kuhn over at KTUU, teachers planning to retire this year are likely going to be on a little bit of a tighter budget than they expected. On May the 31st, the Division of Retirement and Benefits sent out a letter notifying retiring teachers that their retirement would be effective as of July 1st, and they would begin receiving benefits through the TERS system, the Teachers Retirement System. However, in the same envelope was an additional notification informing applicants that the retirement payments could actually be delayed 12 to 14 weeks due to critical staff shortages, with the department's processing unit causing a backlog of applications. So 14, that's 3 months, right? And according to one of the people interviewed in this article, Glenn Ramos, he said he and his wife were really blindsided by it. They both worked for the Alaska public school system for 32 years, and they both retired. And you'd think, okay, well, they need some time. You're going to get retired. You got to process everything. Well, then you find out that he said, we did everything that they asked us to do, including they were required to make their intentions known that they were retiring by Christmas of last year, which they both did. And they began this lengthy application process. The original contract they both signed said that payments would be expected at the beginning of August. So you retire, you end in May, June, July, then you get your first retirement payment in August. So, but they let them know 6, almost 7 months ago that they were going to retire. And there's still going to be another 3-month delay on top of this. I mean, wow. Just wow. While Ramos thought that 12 to 14 weeks delay was bad enough, he was especially shocked when a TERS counselor told him that due to the staffing shortages within the Office of Retirement and Benefits, payments were more realistically going to be held up until December of this year. So you're gonna retire, and if it's in December, you're not going to see a check for 7 months. Now, look, I know that we bang on a lot of the things that have to do with government on this program, and I know that we're not always a fan of, the kind of the expansive retirements things and everything else. But when you go into a deal and you're promised a certain thing, especially under contract, and you're like, okay, you're going to retire, but then to make you wait 7 months for a paycheck for that retirement payment? Oh, that's nutty. That right there. Something tells me right there that something is going on that is just, I mean, first they tell you up front, well, it's going to be 3 months. Oh, no, it's going to be 7 months, according to the TERS counselor. But the bigger issue at hand, according to Tom Claymeyer, who's the president of NEA Alaska, is the fact that the delays are a direct violation of the contractual obligation laid out within Alaska's Constitution regarding employee retirement benefits. Oh, I can feel a lawsuit coming in right now. Although I would normally, disagree with Claymeyer in his position just simply because of who he is and what he does, he certainly has a point when he says, I don't know too many people, especially educators, who have enough money to go without that income for 6 months. I'm not a lawyer, but certainly it seems to me that raises legal issues, constitutional issues as to whether or not that relationship has been impaired. 6 or 7 months? Yeah. Do you know too many people who could live without any income for 6 or 7 months? It's I've done it, folks. It's not always easy. It is not always easy, especially if you've been planning the whole time and they just got this letter on May the 31st, right? May the 31st, after they notified them almost 6 months earlier that they would be retiring. So I don't know. Maybe encouraging your kid to go work for the government is not necessarily a good idea because even they're having a hard time. Again, this all stems from the fact that they've got a backlog because they have critical staff shortages. What is going on that you can't get people to process paperwork in the government? I mean, this is a Department of Administration thing, right? This is not the Department of Health. So this is a totally different Department of Health and Social Services. What's going on? Are you not paying people good enough to get them to attract them to the position? Is there something else happening? I just don't know. But to expect somebody who has worked for the state for 32 years, who is given their proper 5 or 6 months notice, and then to tell them, oh, by the way, you're going to have to wait 3 months. No, but we really mean 6 to 7 months. I can understand people being upset about that. I could understand. Would that fly if you were being fined by the state over something and you're like, well, I would get to that, but I have a critical staffing shortage and I'm just not going to be able to do it. I'm just not going to be able to get to that. Would that fly with the state of Alaska? No. No. What exactly is what exactly is going on there? What exactly? I mean, because again, although I may not agree with somebody politically or on the other thing, you look at this is not a partisan issue. You told people you were going to pay them. They worked for 30 years to get to that magical sweet spot or whatever of retirement. They follow all your rules, give you 6 months notification, 5 months notification that they're going to retire, and then you give them 1 month's notice or whatever that, by the way, your retirement's going to not take place in 60 days. Instead, it's going to be, it could be as long as 6 months. Incompetence is the word of the day. Maddening level of incompetence, says Donna in the chat room. I would not disagree. And again, to me, it's not a partisan issue. It's a fairness issue. And in this case, it's a legal issue, right? It's a legal issue. And yeah, what about all this funding? Remember when Mike Shower and company tried to cut out all this funding for empty positions that hadn't been filled since 2014 or something? I mean, take some of that money and shovel it over there and make those jobs more attractive if that's what it takes to get it done. I mean, if they've got all these empty, critically understaffed, critical staff shortages is causing a backlog. The Division of Retirements and Benefits causing a backlog of applications. Yeah, I think that's just kind of incompetent. Who's the head of the Division of Retirement and Benefits? I want to know. I'm curious. And so anyway, I just thought about that. I mean, that would be a tough road to hoe for anyone. Now, assuming, you would assume that if they've reached retirement age, they've paid off their house and maybe they don't have the bills that a new family has or whatever. But regardless, this is what you were promised. Yeah. Chris says over on Twitch, he says, everyone is critically understaffed. It's a reality of the current economic situation. Yeah, I got to know what's happening. Maybe I need to encourage my daughter's looking for another job. Maybe I should encourage her to go work for the Department of Retirement and Benefits and process paperwork. If that's all, what's going on here? It's I don't know what's going on. Donna Ardwin says the Alaska state government has more employees relative to state population than 48 other states. Yeah. Again, is this a problem of priorities? Is it a problem or a function of budgets, or is it just blatant incompetence? This story just kind of blows me away overall. Because again, I don't think this is a partisan issue. I think you made a promise, whether I agreed with the promise or not, you made it, and it's a legally binding contract, and you should get up off your rusty dusty and get it fixed. That's what needs to happen. Okay. We got to go. We're going to continue. We're going to talk next. We got the bump stock ban on Friday was overturned by the Supreme Court. We're going to talk about that just a little bit. What else we got? Oh, the Democrats' party platform. I didn't get to that because I got talking about this. I mean, I just can't believe this retirement thing. All right, we're going to continue. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Bureaucracy began tottering after COVID. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did. I mean, we've had critical shortages of personnel and problems, and I mean, it's been going on for a long time. But again, it's 2024, right? We've had 3 years since 2020 was kind of a wash with all of COVID. We've had 3 years to get things back to kind of being squared away. And I just don't even know. Leela says, supposedly it's a pay problem, though I don't know an administrative assistant in the private sector who makes anywhere near what they pay the state. And then, since they have a shortage of workers, they work the ones they have to death and refuse to pay overtime. Well, no, that's what they were told. They told the legislature. That was one of the reasons why they needed to hold on to some of those funds from the unfilled positions, because they were using it to pay overtime for the people that were doing the work for the positions they couldn't fill. I mean, that's what they said. That level of delay should be paid with interest and penalties, says Jeannie. Yeah. Uh-huh. I mean, I would agree with that. Again, I just don't think that's a partisan. You just don't mess with people's pay. You know, whether I agreed with the whatever the contract or the retirement or not. I mean, this was a promise that was made. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. I'm just trying to imagine trying to go 3 months without 6 months without a paycheck. That's a tough situation. Even if you are coming on into your retirement years, that's still a tough situation. You got a lot of stuff that you plan for. And to let you know on May 31st that you may not be getting your check in 60 days like you were told, or 60 days, so June and July, and you get it the 1st of August. Yeah, I mean, you can plan for the 60-day thing. But, I mean, come on, people. Come on. What else we got here? Oh, yeah. Okay. Talk about that. Okay. And I got this story. I was going to talk about it, but it's, I don't think we're going to have time today. Maybe we'll try and save it for tomorrow. But if you've seen the viral video of the guy who apparently is stealing from Walmart, he walks into the scanners and he just moves the items from his cart into his bag and then walks out. This is like a big viral video. It turns out that it wasn't true, but this is the internet today. The guy said his life has been upended because people took video and posted it online. And anyway, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. We're going to get to that. That's a smart shirt that I have here. Yeah, you like that shirt, huh? Yeah, it's available. You can follow the links over at MichaelDukesShow.com. There's a link to the Zazzle site for it. All right. Well, I'm all caught up in the comments. Everything else seems to be good. Oh, I missed this one. Teresa, I saw it, but I didn't read it. Teresa said a loved one's retirement dollars was very difficult. It took a ridiculously long time for them to finally get. Yeah. I mean, I understand sometimes this is, sometimes it happens. But again, 7 months. I mean, essentially, they've given them a year. At that point, they would have given them a year notice. I mean, that's That's a thing. I can't imagine. I can't imagine how people are supposed to figure that out. Brian says, "Don't tell my mom I work for the state. She thinks I'm a piano player at a cat house." I mean, you don't want her to have a lower opinion of you. Is that what you're trying to say? Is that what you're trying to say? Oh, man. Okay. Well, we're coming back onto the radio. We're ready to go. Let's get back to it. Sarah Vance is going to be joining us in hour 2. And we're ready to crack into this here. Ready to get things rolling on. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff, the YouTube and the check out the Common Sense Core, all that stuff. All right, let's get to it. Here we Okay. Well, let's continue on here. Sarah Vance is going to be joining us in hour 2. And we'll be talking with her about, election season, upcoming session, recap of the last session, see how she feels about that, everything else. We want to talk about the Supreme Court ruling on Friday, but before we get to that, let's take a peek at what's going on in the local races across the state of Alaska. Haines Republican Bill Thomas announced on Friday that he is dropping out of the House race for District 3. Now, Thomas was essentially the token Republican, I guess, in the Juneau area. That's got to be a hard place that's got to be hard. That's going to be hard. A company town like that, a government town like that. That leaves a Democratic Representative Andy Story with an easy walk-on victory with no opponent this year. All 3 Juneau candidates, including Senator Jesse Keel, Rep Sarah Hannon, and now Andy Story, are all unopposed, which I guess should not be that surprising. Bill Thomas, who's in his late 70s, is a former state rep who served in the House from 2005 to 2013. He told friends and supporters that he just doesn't have the time to campaign and also commercially fish this year. I mean, the campaigning takes a lot of time. It's absolutely true. Takes a huge amount of time. Now, his withdrawal has not been made official at APOC, but the divisions of elections last day for candidates to withdraw from the 20th primary is June 29th. So he's still got about 10, 12 days to pull the plug on this, but he's already reporting and announcing that he is stepping out of the race. So I guess not that, again, he was the token Republican in the Juneau race. I think it was, I guess it would be hard to justify. I mean, good for him for trying to stand up, but it would be hard to justify in a race where you know that your chances of actually making it are pretty astronomically small. I could see, you don't want to lose a whole fishing season. I could see that for sure. Well, Suzanne Downing over at Must Read Alaska is reporting that the Alaska Democratic Party has released its new platform, and it looks like a lot like the old one. But there are a number of important changes in the new party guidance document that relate to the environment, energy, and climate change. One of the key changes has to do with ANWR, the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge, where the 1002 area has been set aside for oil and gas energy development, and has been for years. That's like this one section of ANWR has been set aside. The Democrats say that needs to end immediately. The oil and gas needs to end immediately. That's what they say. No more oil, no more gas in the state of Alaska. I mean, they're the state's economic powerhouse. They are the state. That's what funds not only the permanent fund dividend, but that's what funds government. I mean, right? I mean, that's what's funding government is the oil and gas development. That's the lion's share of the money going into that. And funding government is from oil and gas. The platform was published on the party's website after their state convention held in late May. They, I mean, what I just don't understand. What exactly is the plan? If Alaska is not going to have oil and gas to fund the budget, how exactly do you expect the state to operate? They have not broadcast the drastic changes in any public-facing way, but they did post it to the party website, and it shows that they have finally withdrawn their reluctant and qualified support for fossil fuels. And now they oppose all fossil fuel development in ANWR, even the long-permitted 1002 area of the North Slope. The new platform sets the party agenda for, quote, rapid transition to renewable sources, unquote, and supports carbon pricing. And this, of course, makes them align with the National Democratic Party platform overall. They want to use carbon pricing to lower the demand for petroleum and make it more expensive so that the costly green energy can compete. That's essentially what they're trying to do. This, of course, also comes at the time when there's been a petition to dismantle TAPS. Did you see that? There's been a petition's been filed by a consortium of environmental litigation groups with the Department of Interior calling them to tear TAPS down, tear the pipeline down. Because that makes sense. And according to the new mandate from the Democratic Party, the Alaska Democratic Party, although the Alaska oil and gas industry historically has made and continues to make vital contributions to Alaska's economy, the current advanced state of climate disruption, that's a new one. It's not global warming. It's not climate change anymore. It's just climate disruption, requires that the world transition away from fossil fuels as soon as possible. We support a rapid transition to renewable energy sources, which are now cheaper than fossil fuels. Show me where it's cheaper than fossil. Show me on this napkin. Do me the math. Show me on this napkin how it is cheaper and more reliable and more. Just show me how this works. This is going to be a tough one because Mary Peltola, Democrats make their party members adhere to their platform. They're not like the Republicans where Lisa can just run amok and do whatever. They have to, they don't allow them to stray from the party line. So Peltola is going to have her work cut out for her trying to convince voters that she's not against the Alaska oil agenda, which of course she is, because that's, and then again, how are we going to pay for all this? That's the bigger question. Nobody knows. Oh, man. All right. Well, the Supreme Court on Friday struck down the Trump era ban on bump stocks, which we've talked about on the program. They're a novelty item. They're really not, of all the things that you'd like to fight about on the Second Amendment, that's like would have been lowest on my list of anything that goes on there. Bump stocks, of course, allow the rifle to ride inside of the bump stock, and the recoil causes you to pull the trigger repeatedly, right? So it simulates semi-auto, or it simulates auto fire, but it's not. You're still pulling the trigger every time. Anyway, the 6-3 majority opinion written by Clarence Thomas found that the Justice Department was wrong to declare that bump stocks transform semi-automatic rifles into illegal machine guns because, he wrote, as anybody who's looked at this knows, each trigger depression in rapid succession still only releases one shot. That the trigger still has to be pulled for every shot. And that was a big problem. The ruling reinforced the limits of executive reach, and two justices, both Samuel Alito, the conservative, and liberal Sotomayor, separately highlighted how action in Congress could potentially provide a more lasting policy if there was a political will to act in a bipartisan fashion. But there's not. The gun control is not an issue that Congress wants to take up. The whole point, though, of this was that it had to do with executive overreach. Now, what I find interesting about this is that Democrats are upset about a Republican-era ruling being repealed, and they don't want to run. And in fact, Joe Biden called on Congress to reinstate Trump's ban. I mean, that was the thing. It is just it's just crazy. The whole point of this, though, is the Supreme Court found that the 1934 law against machine guns defines them as weapons that could automatically fire more than one shot by a single function of the triggers. Bump stocks don't do that. Thomas also pointed over a decade of ATS findings that claimed that bump stocks weren't automatic weapons, that they, under the George W. Bush administration, and the Barack Obama administrations, the agency had found that they were totally legal and had issued opinion letters to that effect. It is just crazy. The whole point here has to do with executive overreach at the ATF. That really is what it boils down to. And that's what makes it very similar to the case of the EPA over the Clean Water Act, where the Supreme Court struck that down here recently as well, last year, saying that it was really more about overreach from the agency taking unto themselves powers that are relegated to Congress. That it was Congress's role to act, not the ATF, not the EPA. This is part of the problem: executive and administrative overreach. So we'll see what happens here as this goes forward. But it's an interesting, like I said, of all the things to fight about, this is one that I cared less about. But I got to tell you right now, the arm braces, that's next. That's going to be the next case. And I think they're going to lose that one too. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Yeah, I think this is crazy. And then then KTUU did this man on the street thing. I mean, it wasn't a video. It was just they reported. And they went down and talked to the owner of Alaska Tactical, who said exactly what I said. He goes, the bump stocks are not practical. It doesn't aid in accuracy or marksmanship. And it says it's something a beginner would likely use for fun at the gun range. I mean, it's a great way to turn, money into bullets in a fast and rapid way. That's all it is. It's not accurate. It's not, it's a novelty item, But then they stopped some guy who was on the street downtown, was walking through downtown Anchorage. He disagreed. He's not in favor of the ban being lifted, and he said he didn't even know what bump stocks were until the 2017 mass shooting. He said, you see videos of it and the audios of it. It sounds like an automatic weapon, so to me, that's it. I don't understand the purpose of it, other than just to fire off more rounds in a given time. Well, that's exactly the purpose of it. But just because you don't understand the purpose of it doesn't mean that it should be illegal, right? I just love how they walk up to some guy in the street. What are your thoughts on bump stocks? I don't know. Here's the kicker, though. The AP said that there were about 520,000 bump stocks in circulation when the ban went into effect in 2019, requiring people to either surrender them or destroy them. The estimated loss in value was $100 million in value for those 520,000 bump stocks. And I'm sure there's people out there who didn't comply, but estimated $100 million just with the swish of a pen. $100 million of private goods, destroy it, take it out, or be a felon. That's just crazy. Crazy stuff. All right. Let me go back up here. I'm scrolling backwards here. Okay. Unopposed voting. Unopposed candidates should trigger a later filing deadline, says Jeannie. That's an interesting thought. If they run unopposed, there's an extra window of time. I mean, I can see it being more convoluted, but it's an interesting thought, Jeannie. I mean, that's interesting thought. Yeah, they want to tear it down. They want to dismantle the pipeline. Trying to get attention off of other things, says Jay. Or says Rick. Sorry, Rick. Carbon pricing is a Ponzi scheme. Yeah. That is true. Micro nukes or go home, says Jeannie. I may be a filthy Republican, says Joel on YouTube, but at least I don't hate my country like the Democrats do. The same people that do green math can't figure out how to process retirement paperwork. Sorry, that was funny. Holy cow. I mean, yeah. I mean, this again, the same people who are like, oh, yes, you'll get paid your retirement. You'll just have to wait, you'll have to give us a year's notice, and then you have to wait another 6 months for you to get paid your retirement that you signed a contract for, but no big deal. Yeah. And Tyler's like Donald pro-gun Trump. Yeah, I mean, again, this was one of the things that, we bang on the Trump administration for more than anything else. ATF has never had the power to enact a law. The only function is to enforce existing laws. The same goes with the pistol brace. They don't have the power to make them unlawful. No, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I can tell you right now, people with pistol braces, most of them probably did not get destroyed or turned in. And that law is going to be overturned as well. I agree. I think that. All right. All right. There we go. Democrats don't hate. They aren't out to get you. They're your friends and neighbors. Okay. Yeah. Democrats do hate their country, but in a different way, not like outwardly hate. They hate the fact that they're successful, and they want everybody to be kind of equally miserable. So, and again, you can't paint with a broad brush. There are some people that are that way and some people that aren't, but in the whole, in the mean, this is what it looks like. All right. I see that Sarah is in the green room. She's ready to go. I don't know. It's early Monday morning. Hello, good morning. How are you?
Doing great. Had to find my mute button.
Your mute button. You were muted. So is it still as nice as it was when I left? Is it still beautiful and sunny?
Well, at the moment, we're fogged in, and it's beautiful because it's all up in the neighborhood coming around. So it'll probably burn off by mid-morning.
Yeah, well, good. It was such a nice weekend. Unbelievable down there. All right. Well, you sound good. You look good. Everything's good. We'll get back to you. I'll put you back in the green room, and we'll be back to you here in a hot second. Don't go anywhere. Sarah Vance, our guest. All right, let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Happy Monday, my friends. Here we go.
buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
Sounds just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. That's FM. FM translator. Welcome back to the program. Hour 2 of the big radio broadcast on this beautiful Monday. I guess it's foggy in Homer right now. They're waiting for it to burn off. It's a gorgeous weekend down there. Gorgeous weekend in Seward. My kids were in Seward. 2 of my kids were in Seward. Gorgeous weekend in the Valley. 80 degrees in Fairbanks. Summer has sprung. And I'm just so excited about it, especially after last summer, right? I just needed, give me a little bit of that vitamin D. That's all I needed, was just a little bit of the vitamin D. All right. So here we are in hour 2 of this beautiful Monday program. We just finished up with some of the headlines and some of the news stories that I just couldn't wrap my brain around. But now we're moving on back into some of the candidate stuff and discussions. And Sarah Vance is our guest this morning. She joins us. We're going to talk with her about, what do we talk with them about? We talk with them about wood ticks, lunatics, and politics. All 3 fun stuff, all the ticks that are out there. And she joins us this morning to discuss that and so much more. Hello, how are you this morning, Miss Vance? Mrs. Vance, how are things going for you down there?
Doing great. I've been eating a lot of birthday cake, so life's good.
Yeah, good. It's now it was your son's birthday, is that? And
my youngest turned 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then my oldest turns 21 this week.
Wow. So it's a birthday cake week is what it is.
We just go from one cake to the next. Yeah. And then in the community, I went up to Ninilchik and celebrated a friend's 80th birthday. Anchor Point had other birthdays. We won't disclose their age. But it's been a great time. This is part of summer, right? Summer birthdays and lots of outdoor barbecues and cake.
Yeah. Well, today is my daughter Maggie's birthday. So today is her birthday. So lots of summer birthdays. Maggie. Yeah, lots of summer birthdays today. All right. Well, Sarah, it's been a while. Nobody as soon as the session's over, nobody wants to talk to me. Every politician where I have their direct phone number, they just ignore my texts and everything else. And no, you didn't ignore my texts, but you were like, no, because you guys want to spend some time with the fam. You got things going on. I understand. That's, it happens. But election season is in swing. I mean, August 20th is right around the corner. That's the primary. And so we want to get in and chat with a bunch of folks. I've got emails and stuff going out later today to invite other candidates on the program. We'll see who we can get on between now and election day. But first and foremost, I guess we should get a bit of a recap of your final thoughts on the session after it all ended, with the running late and after midnight and all that. We haven't talked to you about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming election season. So give us your recap. What's going on?
Ooh, the recap is that this was the busiest session. I mean, we were working hard on the floor early, and we were only, maybe midway through, and people were saying this feels like the end of session, because we wanted to address education and energy right away. And we worked hard to do that and find, solutions. And then, of course, that got derailed. But we really pressed hard in the House. And I had 5 bills make it to the Senate, which was a first for me, and saw them get hijacked. There were some cleanups. I did get 2 bills passed One is a mariculture bill that helps with their leases. And then the other is the CSAM bill that changes the term child pornography to child sexual abuse material and calls it for what it is. But the big one that created a lot of mayhem after midnight on that final day was the voter registration bill to clean up our voter rolls. And it's interesting that there isn't as much media coverage around that hijack that I thought there would be. But it was a showdown of epic proportion. And I got to tell you, our speaker, Tilton, is amazing. She handled that with so much grace and was able to pull our majority together to kill that bill. The amazing thing, the irony is that that was my first bill to get all the way across the finish line. And I had, through both chambers, and I had to kill my own bill as it came back to the House because the Senate completely ransacked it. And
and just for a second, I do want to dissect that just for a second, because your bill was a pretty simple and straightforward bill, right? I mean, it was like a page and a half or something. It wasn't a whole lot. It basically just said we need to shrink the time frame down for the reviews of the rolls and clearing things out. Normally it would take 8 years. You'd reduced it down to 6 years. It was a pretty simple bill. So if people move or they die or something like that, we're going to shorten that time frame down. That was it. But then it went over there and Scott Kawasaki picked it up and stuffed pages of stuff into it that you had no intent. It was not your intent at all.
No, I was intentional about it being a very simple bill because my entire tenure, we've seen these huge omnibus election bills that, we're going to come to a compromise. Well, no, because, don't ask for the moon. There are issues that I just will not agree with the Democrats on when it comes to elections. No way, no how, not even going to talk about it. And like same day voter registration, not going to happen. So why are we even here? But Kawasaki and Wilikowski just continued to press that. We knew that they were going to hijack, but I was hoping that they would need an election win bad enough that they would be somewhat reasonable. So I did get them to remove the same day voter registration, but they had a whole lot of other things in there that without the protections that we need, like multi-factor authentication, just things that verify people are who they say they are, then there's no way that we could have accepted what they wanted because we were just an open border policy on our elections is what they had put forward in that bill, and I had to kill it at all cost.
So walk us through that night. Kathy Tilton was, again, she was whipping she was the speaker. She's out there organizing things. And the point was they were trying to bring this to the floor for the final confirmation vote, right? And it eventually got killed, but with the help of, again, Kathy is kind of the ringleader, the organizer of the whole thing getting together here.
Well, we knew that the bill would return to the House to the limbo file, but we just didn't know when because bills were coming over from the Senate for concurrence. And the majority leader is in charge of the limbo file. So we had been watching closely of when it would return. Well, someone must have given the minority leader the notice as soon as it was transmit electronically over to the clerks because he made a motion to withdraw it from the limbo file, which is essentially overriding our leadership. And it called it into question. I objected, of course, and we took the vote and it fell 20-20. That was around, I think, 10:30 in the evening. And it was just what it was, hey, we're not gonna run a big debate. Well, after midnight, the Democrats tried it again. And there was a lot of horse trading going on. And I know that the Senate was working on buying votes from my members. They were saying, hey, we'll release your bills in the Senate if you give us votes on this election bill. So there was a lot of dirty going on trying to buy our votes. And I really want to say to our House Republicans for holding strong and not taking the bait on that, because that was really hard. They worked hard on bills, but the Senate was holding a lot of bills for ransom with that election bill and many others that night.
Well, this is the kind of dirty pool we've expected or come to expect, I guess, from the Alaska Senate, unfortunately. That's a tough thing to say. But then you guys ended up going long. You went, as you mentioned, after midnight, which has created kind of a whole new challenge. It looks like the governor is going to probably veto all the bills that took place after midnight, because that's the constitutional deadline, is midnight, and you can do everything you want. But I mean, this is what blows my mind, is that, again, every legislator is sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, and they said, well, we'll ignore statutes and that's fine, but the Constitution's pretty clear, and yet you just continued on. And poor Laddie Shaw tried to call sine die like 4 times, because that was going to be his honor, right? Because this is his last year, he'll get to sign, and like 4 times he gets shouted down on this deal, and it blows my mind that both sides of the aisle, both the Republicans and the Democrats, are still pushing this thing forward. It's midnight, guys. You're done. What happened?
Well, there was a lot of desperation because the Senate had held so many bills on ransom that people were scrambling to get their bills passed before midnight. And it just shouldn't be that way. That's not good process. And the Senate, tried to act like they were just being so noble about the budget agreement and keeping our word on the timing of trading the budgets. And then on the policy bills that were very necessary, a lot of good policy going on, that they were holding them ransom. And it was absolutely frustrating. But this is what happens. And when you see, the rules chairman coming over to our members and trying to get them to sell out their own members for their bills, that's just dirty politics right there. And so I'm really proud of our House majority, our Republicans, for holding together and not betraying their own members, because that was a hard go. When you have poured your heart and soul into some good policy, to try to get it passed, you're trying to do good things for your district and for Alaska, just to have some shady maneuvering at the last minute. I had a really good bill that made it all the way through both bodies with bipartisan support, and they just held on to it and said, no, we're not going to give you this because of the election bill. And why is that necessary? It's heavy-handed bullying, and that's the part that absolutely infuriates me.
Sarah Vance is our guest, candidate for re-election. Also, she's serving the Lower Peninsula in the House of Representatives, running for re-election as well. We're going to talk about that re-election bid here in just a moment. We will be back with more. We got more coming up here. Don't go anywhere. We'll return. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more and Sarah Vance right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right, Sarah's still with us there. Looked like her camera froze for a minute. You want to try and reconnect, Sarah? I'll kick you from the thing, and you can reconnect if you want to try there. All right, so Sarah's going to be back here in just a hot second. We'll get it through. What's the basis for your election? Harold, do you even know what the bill did? I'm just asking. Do you even know what the bill did? No? Tell me who don't know by what you just said. All it did was that it sped up the clearing of the voter rolls from 8 years to 6 years. That's all it did. That's just classic stuff there. That's all it did, is it basically and Sarah's here, she could tell us, but essentially all this bill did was speed up the process of cleaning the voter rolls. Because you got people who, I mean, Frank just said his daughter hasn't been a resident for 9 years. She's still on the voter rolls. That's part of the problem, right? I mean, this was not some kind of contentious bill about elections or voting machines or anything else. This was simply, we need to clean up our voter rolls a little faster because we got a lot of dead weight on the voter rolls. That's essentially what it was. So it's interesting. But am I right on that, Sarah? Is that essentially what your bill did?
Yes. And the Democrats tried to make hay with it, claiming that it would kick, Alaskans off of the voter rolls who intend to vote. And I said, no, that's not what it's doing. It would move them to the inactive status if they hadn't voted for a period of time, and all they have to do is simply go vote, and it puts them back on the active status. And, with the ballot initiative in 2016, people are automatically registered to vote when they apply for their dividend. So that's just a false notion that it's going to remove good Alaskans from the voter rolls. This is intended for people who don't live here or who have died or who are not eligible Alaskans to vote, be removed from the voter rolls. It's that simple. It is the simplest thing we could do to help secure the integrity of our elections. And
Right.
And the Democrats like Scott Kawasaki killed it.
Yeah. Well, and still it takes with your bill, it would take 6 years to get off the voter rolls.
Correct.
I mean, that's 3 elections, at least one major national election, if not 2, depending on where it fell. I mean, that's a lot of time. 6 years is a lot of time. If somebody dies, it should be pretty simple to say, oh, wait, here's that they buy. It shouldn't be more than a year or 2 before they're off the rolls because of that. I can't tell you how many mail-in ballots, when they were doing the mail-in stuff, how many ballots I got in my mailbox. I've had the mailbox for 10 years, and I think I got 5 different ballots in my mailbox from people who didn't live. I hadn't had that box for 10 years. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, sorry, that was in response to the question of what's the basis for your election reform bill? What evidence do you have to justify your ideas? We have more voters on the rolls than we have people. That was kind of part of the problem, right? I mean, that's the justification. Anyway, Sarah, we're going to dive into this here. You got some opponents this year, and it seems like everybody's hanging their hat on this whole education thing. And to me, it's just mind-boggling that there is no accountability baked into any of this stuff. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. How was your son's birthday, by the way? I meant to ask you that.
It was fantastic. I think we had every kid in the neighborhood here. Water fights, water balloons thrown everywhere, cake, watermelon. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's good, and I'm sorry I couldn't help you on that on the way down. That was a bummer, but I'm glad everything worked out for you guys down there. It was a beautiful weekend for it, that's for sure. All right. Let's get to it. Sarah Vance, our guest, The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go. Let's get to it right now.
Public enema number 1. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number 1, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
What? I am not a pain in the... You can ask anybody. I'm a perfect angel. Perfect angel. Welcome back to the program, the Michael Duke Show, Monday edition. Beautiful day. Hope you're ready for... Oh, man, it feels like it's finally the kickoff of summer. Sarah Vance is our guest. She is the State House rep for the Lower Peninsula down there in the Homer area. And we've just been talking about the end of session and everything that went on there. But it's that time of year. It's election season, and Sarah is up for re-election. And so I suppose we should start off with, what we normally do with, if people don't know who you are. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't, but, who are you, where you come from? Give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll talk about the race and some of the things that your opponents are already out there swinging on. So let's get started. Who you are, where you came from, how you decided to lose your mind to do this whole Juno thing. Hit me with it here.
Well, I am a homeschooling mother of 4 from Homer, and I grew up here in Homer. This is my home, my happy place, Michael's happy place, and my decision to run was that I got tired of being lied to by our elected officials and decided that I should speak up and do something about it. And I actually turned down the request to run for House 2 times and said, hey, my children are young. I'm not prepared. And my husband said, I think we can do this. And I thought, if I have my husband and family support, then I can do anything. So I started just asking people in the community, what's important to you? What should my platform be? This is your seat, your representation, and just gained a lot of favor in the community. And here I am. So here I am again, renewing our 2-year contract with the voters, saying, what do you want my platform to be? Because I could tell you what I think is going to be the highlight next session, but my priorities are your priorities, and I want to make sure that you feel represented. And so my district starts in Kasilof on the south side of Soldotna, there at the stoplight, and goes all the way to the head of the bay, across to Halbert Cove and Soldovia.
So you cover quite a large area there, covering a lot of stuff that a lot of folks who are in those areas, and it hasn't been without contention. Obviously, you've got a handful of opponents this go around, and now it's going to be interesting because I think there's 4 total at this point, right? I think the 4. Is that right?
There's 4 of us, yes.
Yeah. So with ranked choice voting, the primary is really kind of nothing more than a straw poll at this point, because with ranked choice voting, anything beyond 4 would have to get sussed down. But since there's only 4, all 4 of you are going straight to the general unless somebody drops out between now and then. And everything that I've seen so far from your opponents, all the comments that they've made in the news stories and the media, has something to do with education. And you said you think you knew what the next thing is. It's going to be education, right? Because that was the drum that they were beating they beat this drum before the session. That's all they talked about at the beginning of the session. You mentioned it early on. The House really wanted to take a crack at this and get a shot at it. And that kind of fell apart. But the basic paraphrase of every one of your opponents so far is, we were just so disappointed that she doesn't support education because she didn't vote for the $700, $800,000, $1,100, $1,400 BSA increase. We just are so disappointed, and that's why we're running. Education funding was, and Kevin makes the point. You guys spent almost $500 million on education this year. It's not like it's not like you're denying money to the educational industry. It's that, we're spending gobs of money and getting a shoddy product at the other end. And so there has to be some accountability. There has to be some things to be done here. And probably just stuffing money into the BSA is not the best way to do it, right? They got a ton of money. It just wasn't in the automatic, you'll get paid every year for the next 20 years kind of money.
Correct. And there's a misnomer that they have not received additional funding in a decade or since 2017. Well, that's simply not true. We have given additional one-time funding on top of the base student allocation year after year after year to the tune of $175 million, which we did this year, including pupil transportation and the school bond debt reimbursement. They go into debt, and we've been paying that bill. I have a problem with that. but that's something that the legislature has chosen to do year after year. So that the difference is that they don't have it inside the formula that provides more stability, so they know what it is. I want them to have stability. I don't want our teachers to have pink slips go out, but I also want a fair shot. I want parents' choice in education so that our public charter schools have an easier path to be formed so that parents can have control of their child's education through a specific charter school that meets their students' needs. And I want homeschool correspondents to have just as much of a fair trade as the brick and mortar. And we don't have that in the state right now. So my opponents were outraged that I didn't override the governor's veto on education. And it's simply because I agreed with him. He told the legislature, we can do better. And he's right. We clearly can. And so that became the battle over, are we going to give teacher bonuses? Because the Democrats didn't want to do that. Are we going to make an easier path for the successful charter schools that are proven to be giving our students excellent education? Correspondence homeschool. Come on. There's a reason that parents are homeschooling their kids. They're not happy with the brick and mortar schools. So I don't want to discriminate against any type of education and want to open that up for the best possible way to educate our kids. And if we're going to do that, then I'm willing to give the appropriate amount of money, but I want the accountability instead of just handing them a blank check, because that's clearly not working for Alaska. And it's unfortunate because it's our kids who are suffering.
Right. But the narrative is, and as you've pointed out, the narrative has become, and we saw it repeated ad nauseum by the news media and everything else, is that there hasn't been a single extra dollar expended in education. Well, they haven't received any Now, when you're talking about the BSA, yes, the BSA has remained static, but that doesn't count the money that you paid over and beyond the BSA. And in the last 7 years, in 4 of the last 7 years since 2017, they have paid an additional almost $165 million outside of that, plus what's coming up this year, which you've approved already. So out of the last 7 years, it'll be 5 of the last 7 years will have excess money paid on top of the BSA, specifically outside the formula. And that doesn't count the increase to the regular school funding in and of itself. I mean, it's huge amounts of money. I mean, it's a lie. That's the thing. It's a lie, but oft repeated, it becomes the truth. Oh, we're just not paying. We got $22,000 for every kid in the state of Alaska. That's a lot of money.
It's upwards of $6,000 per child, to the schools. But what the other element that is not being talked about is that our attendance has gone down. That there's a out migration. What is that? Our schools are losing students, especially Anchorage. So they're not getting as much funding because they are not being competitive and showing that, hey, we're gonna support you. We're gonna provide what you as families need for your students. And so people have been going to homeschool. About 20% of our students are homeschooled, and the brick and mortar schools, NEA, does not like that because it's competition.
Right. Well, and that's part of the problem. And again, I think they bit off a little bit more. I think they bit off a little bit more than they could chew with that with that court case. I don't think they were expecting to get what they got, and there was some panic going on because they've realized they've now basically offended and upset 25, 30,000 parents out there with kids who are like, whoa, wait a second. You're going to cut this off and cause all this uncertainty. Is it really about the children, or is it really about money? That's the problem. Is it really? And as you said, the NEA, they don't like the competition. They don't like the fact that they would now have to compete with homeschooling or charter schools or private schools for any of this money. They want it all for them. And they're the ones that were pushing this narrative of, well, there's been no increase in education. And the news media, unfortunately, there's nobody there with any kind of analytical thought amongst them that could say, well, that's not necessarily true. The money has been spent and they've spent over the thing. Nobody broke that down. We broke it down on the program multiple times, but none of the other mainstream media outlets are saying, is that really true? Let's look at the numbers. And the numbers show it. The numbers show that the increase in funding is there. let alone the above the BSA payments, but just the actual increase to school funding has gone on year after year after year. It always goes up.
It is the second largest budget item that we have. Healthcare is the only thing that supersedes education in our budget.
Yeah. No.
Most people don't realize that. They think that they hear the narrative that we're not putting enough money to education, and it's simply not true. How much is enough? How much? Because when we see the waste that is happening without the accountability, where they're getting new furniture and things like that. Now, I get it. We need to have sufficient equipment and things for our students, but when the schools then turn around and claim that they don't have money for textbooks and the materials for teaching, then maybe you need to look at how you're spending your money. And that's just a conversation that needs to happen on the local school board level for accountability on how the money is being spent.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It is, we need to start looking at things, and we need to have, again, that accountability. And it was multiple people tried to put some kind of accountability factor over the last 2 years. Multiple people have tried to do it. Mike Shower, I know, tried to do it and everything. Okay, fine, I'll vote for the BSA increase, but we got to have some accountability. Oh no, we can't do that. Well, you've got to have some accountability. You've got to know what's going on. We're producing a substandard product. We're spending more than almost anybody else in the nation, and yet we're down in the 48th, 49th. Oh, I'm sorry. We went up to 46 on one of them. We increased. Wow, great. We went up 2 slots, but it's just horrific. Now, there used to be, and of course, there's no guarantee that any of that money is going to make it into the classroom. And I think the average is just over 50% now. In some places, it's lower than that. Some places it's higher than that. But the average of the dollars actually reaching the classroom is just over 50%. There used to be a statute on the book that said 70% of the BSA was mandated to come into the classroom, not overhead, not paying for administrators, not paying for IT, but actually into the classroom. And that's kind of gone by the wayside. Would you support the idea of putting that 70% marker back into the BSA so that it actually had to go into the classroom?
That's something that we have talked about, and Representative Kevin McCabe has brought that up regularly. And I forget the reasoning why there's been opposition to that. He has more information on that. We've tried to do that because of the accountability. People are like, well, how many principals do we need? How many administrative assistants? And granted, we have a lot of people who help, keep the engine moving. But when we're claiming that we don't have enough support for our teachers, well, where's the balance? So that is something that we've looked at. McCabe has also been vocal on raising the local contribution cap that says if different school districts, if those boroughs want to add more money and they're at their top, why not? We should let them. But we do have to do it across the board because people are saying, oh, we have a constitutional requirement to fund education. Yeah, we do. But that doesn't mean that we have to sell the farm to make it happen.
Right. And part of that's a federal mandate on, median, poverty levels and everything. I mean, there's a federal component to how much a local community can contribute, which I think is ridiculous. If a community comes together and says, we want to spend an extra $100 million on education, that should be a community discussion. Nobody else should have anything to say about that, but that's just me. I think Richard sums up, we're going to end this segment, but I think Richard sums up your whole comment well when he says, if your product sucks and your customers are leaving in droves, throwing money at it will not help. It's time to look at the product and fix it. And I think that's it, right? If something's fundamentally broken, the product sucks. We're throwing money at it all the time. People are leaving in droves. We saw a 33% increase in homeschooling and alternative schooling for kids. If all of those things are true, something is fundamentally broken and we need to admit it. Am I wrong?
It sounds right. Good to me. I'm my second daughter will be in high school this next year, and I'm looking at changing up her curriculum and what's going to be best for her, because it isn't about supporting an education industry that I'm concerned about as a parent. I'm looking at what the best education for her and her needs.
Right.
And I'm going to have a different conversation with my sons because of what they need. And I think that's how we need to approach education for all of Alaska's students. Instead of making it be about the whole industry, what is best for our students?
All right. Sarah Vance is our guest. We're going to talk with her a little bit more about her candidacy for re-election, some of the things that she wants to focus on, what her plan is. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more and Sarah Vance right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Yes, we dip our beard in coffee. It's delicious coffee-flavored beard. All right. It's commercial break right now. Sarah Vance is our guest. What blew me away about this whole thing and I want to get off the education bandwagon here, Sarah, but what really blew me away was the fact that this narrative was repeated over and over and over and ad nauseum. And nobody bothered to look at the facts of, well, the press release from the Democrats said that they didn't increase funding, so they must not have increased funding. I mean, there was no, well, let's look at the budget and see. I mean, this whole thing of where's this picture here? This whole story here. Oh, that's not the one that I wanted. Here it is, right?
Close.
Yeah, that was it. That's pretty much, that sums up everything, right? I mean, does that sum it all up? So here's the picture. Oh, let me squeeze it down so people can see it here. No, there we go. Okay. So here is the K through 12 funding. It's a horrible picture, but we'll get into it here. Let me swap this real quick. Okay, go back to where I was. So look at this funding. I mean, the base student allocation is continued on over and over and over again. Since 2017, yes, the 5930 has remained flat. But look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, of course, 2025, there's also an outside the cap payment there that's not being listed. But that means in 7 years, they've had 5 outside the cap payments, millions of dollars. And that's just the BS. This doesn't count all the other funding, right? This is just the base student allocation. So they're true when they say, well, the BSA hasn't been raised. Well, yes, you're right. The BSA hasn't been raised, but they've paid outside of it. And that doesn't count all the other millions of dollars in funding beyond that, right?
Correct. Having their debt paid off, the legislature has contributed significant millions to paying off their school bond debt reimbursed, the school bonds. That's huge. So essentially, the schools have the ability to go bond for projects that they need, and the legislature has been making significant payments to that. They can do teacher negotiations without a conversation with the legislature, and we are on the hook for that increase that they have put into their budget. So then they come to us and say, we don't have enough money. Now, I get it. That's part of doing business is union negotiations. But we need people to understand the relationship that they just come to the state and say, oh, well, you need to fund this, where the legislature is not having that direct conversation with the schools of saying, okay, this is what our budget is, and this is how much you can negotiate with. That conversation does not exist.
And that's, again, goes right back to the accountability. Where is the money going? What is it being spent on? What are we doing with it? How is the final product? What is the outcome of the money we're spending? But anytime you talk about that, it immediately is this screeching thing of, no, we can't be, you can't hold us accountable for that. We can't guarantee anything. Well, that's kind of what we're looking for as parents. We're looking for a guarantee that our kids will learn reading, writing, arithmetic, logic, rhetoric, and reason, that they can have analytical thought, teaching them how to learn instead of whatever else you want to throw at them, whether it's, diversity or cultural, whatever else those things need to be covered first. Those bases need to be covered, period.
I think we would be having a different attitude and conversation about education in Alaska if we were to talk about that. If instead of it being about money and the education industry, as you so aptly named it, we would feel very differently if we knew that our students were excelling in reading, in math, and language, but they're not. Why? Because they've replaced it with all of the other stuff, all of the other woke agenda and the TED Talks and everything else. And Alaskans are tired of it. And I'm saying this very clearly because I know that my opponents will be listening. We're tired of it. I've talked to so many parents that say, my junior high son is really tolerant, but he's tired of the language teacher coming in and popping in a video of a TED Talk instead of giving instruction on the English language herself. Our Alaskan kids deserve better. And I think that this conversation needs to turn less about the money and more about stopping the woke agenda.
Right. Oh, I would agree with that. I would agree. And again, you want to know why people are leaving the brick and mortar school in droves. I think you probably just hit the nail right on the head right there.
Same with the teachers.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move off of this, off of the education, although that's going to be the only thing they're going to want to talk about next session. I can almost guarantee it because they're not done trying to push for it. Sarah Vance is our guest. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll continue right now. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Here we go. All right, we're continuing now. Sarah Vance is our guest. We're talking about re-election time, the campaign, the season's here. Oh, she's so excited, can't you tell? So excited to be out there on the campaign trail. It's a lot of work. You get a chance to talk to a lot of people, but it gives you kind of a feel for what's going on. Sarah, what do you, and you said it earlier, you're talking to your constituency, what do they care about? I mean, we know that obviously education is probably going to be the number one topic coming back again this year because they didn't get what they wanted, which was that 14-16 BSA, whatever. But there are things. So what else are people talking about? What is Sarah, what's your plan right now as you're still polling people, but what's your plan right now going back into the next session? What would you like to see? What would you like to focus on?
Ooh, there's a lot of technical things that for accountability that need to be worked on. Election reform is always going to be, a top bill for me. I'm not going to hand anything to the Senate. They're going to have to, put up or shut up. But election reform is something that I'm going to continue to prioritize. There's been some more, in the weeds kind of things, like with our ethics committee. There was a lot of concern about the accountability with that, and those statutes need revised, and that's work of the Judiciary Committee. We need to be able to trust in our governmental institutions, and we are at an all-time low, in my personal opinion. And, we need to have things that people can look to in law. And that statute hasn't been updated in a long time. There's just a lot of areas like that. I'm always going to be working on legislation that protects the vulnerable. We assume that we have strong laws to protect us and victims, and that's not necessarily the case. So besides the larger issues that I'm going to work on with the Republican majority, like education and energy, I think those two will be large topics next session. Then I'm going to have a focus on the things that often get forgotten about. It's fishery, I'm hearing a lot of concern about the Cook Inlet. Protecting our fishery is huge, and continuing to make headway on that. I put in funding for the test fishery in the Cook Inlet that would have benefit all fishermen. And I just found out that got cut in the conference committee. So I'm trying to look at the details of that, and continuing to just highlight the things that are important to my district.
As you go about and you see, your opponents are out there, they've made some public statements and things like that. What separates you out from some of your opponents out there? What do you think, what would you say to somebody who said, well, I'm looking at, A or B or C or whatever? What's your argument to, against, how you would benefit them more than your opponent?
Well, I have the leadership in my district to show that I listen to everyone. I've been engaged. I'm not after power. I am after, I represent principle, and I will continue to stand strong and represent the voice of the people, regardless of what the majority is saying. And my opponents are not doing that. There's only two buttons. We have two choices when we make a vote. A button is on the right or a button is on the left. It's yes or no. And my opponents have not made it clear where they stand. I have an independent and a nonpartisan. I have a Republican who endorsed one of my previous very leftist opponents, who's claiming to be a Republican. However, when you align yourself with people on the left, it doesn't prove out to be very true. So I have a lot of clear distinctions that I'm going to oppose taxes, bigger government. I'm going to provide accountability in education. I'm just not going to throw money at education. I want an opportunity for all of our kids to succeed. So those are some clear distinctions that I have with my opponents.
It's interesting, the fact that, we keep coming back to the education thing because it's the elephant in the room at this point. But how many legislators, it was one of the news stories listed all the legislators that had their kids that were in allotment or correspondence or private schools. And it was like, there's a good chunk of the legislature that still have kids at home. Most of them have their kids in, charter, private, or correspondence type schooling. And do you think because somebody just said, education reform from a homeschool parent, you're still homeschooling. You're still using, if you're a member of like an allotment program, you're still using state funds to build these things. Does it disqualify somebody from being able to make laws or anything else just because their kids don't go to the brick and mortar schools? Or is it showing that you're in tune with a bigger chunk of Alaska than most people think?
I think it does. And it shows that we're not a part of the NEA cabal that just says hand over the money or else. That's the unfortunate part is most people don't know that NEA union doesn't even have has less than 50% of the teachers in the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District and the support staff. They don't have as much support as they used to, and yet people believe the narrative that is coming from them. And I think that's why we saw the lawsuit. But that is a distinct difference between me and my opponents, is that I'm not backed by the NEA. I actually have my children within the school system, and I'm a part of my school district right now because I want to leave a lot of options open for engagement with my kids. Another clear distinction between me and my opponents is that I'm pro-life, and that means that I'm going to seek to preserve life, whether it's our fishery, our infants, to our elders. And that is important. I think that's a pinnacle of decision making that a lot of people neglect, is that I'm going to look at human dignity in every decision. And that is not the case with my opponents. So, I think as time goes on, it will reveal that I am the preferred representative. I have one opponent who is the Kenai Peninsula Borough president, who loves taxes. And, the people just can't take the squeeze right now. We had this conversation 6 years ago when Paul Seaton was running, and he was willing to take your PFD and tax you more. He was pushing the income tax to pay for more government. Well, it's a very familiar song right now with my opponents. And, Alaskans are struggling in this economy to pay the bills. And we need to keep that in mind is that any taxes is too much. And we have enough money in our government to make things go. And we need to work towards self-sustaining systems in Alaska.
On Thursday, I spent a good part of the day in Soldotna and Kenai, talking to businesses there, and working with them, doing some stuff for the stations, and every one of them had a very similar story that things are tough, things are tight, they're having a hard time getting employees. Things are down. They're fighting with the government in some cases to keep their employees. Some of them have had employees snagged by local government. It's a very difficult situation right now. And I think that's what people are concerned about overall, the economy, with the elections, the uncertainty, what's going on with the state government. These are all real problems. And unless people address those things, it's going to suck us down.
I agree. People are worn out over politics right now, overall the national media and local government. And, people haven't been pressing me. They just are like, hey, I bet you're so glad to be home. And, I think that's going to be the key thing is getting people to turn out to vote and just encourage them that they still have a voice. There's a lot of hopelessness, and that they can elect people to the legislature who are not going to cause them more pain. And, that's where it is that we have to pay our utility bill just like you do. And that is something that we are not exempt from and we care about.
Sarah Vance, our guest. Sarah, final thoughts, elevator pitch, 1 minute, why people should vote for you, and where do they find you, websites, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think one of the main trademarks that I have is that I keep my word to the best of my ability, and that I will listen and represent you on the smallest issues to the greatest. And I would love your engagement on social media, like and follow my page. And there's a donation link pinned that you can donate to my campaign, because it does take money to help me get the message out that I'm here. I want to represent you and make sure that I'm speaking for people who don't have a voice. So I would, follow me on Vote Sarah Vance.
VoteSarahVance.com. All right, Sarah Vance, thank you so much for coming in. Folks, we're out of time for today. Tomorrow, Brad Keithley, Chris Story. Be kind, love one another, live well. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, we'll give you the floor here. Final couple minutes here. Anything we didn't cover, anything you wanted to hit on? What do we need to do? Sarah, hit me with the whole thing here. You get the final bite at the apple, so to speak, here.
I think I just want to encourage people to engage with their local representatives and their candidates. We can't do this without you. It takes your votes and your help in being a volunteer to help us get reelected. And, that's something that is priceless. So I need help putting out campaign signs, donations, if you want to meet for coffee or have a get together at your home in the backyard barbecue or whatever it is, just give me a call and I will make an effort to be there and just have a conversation about whatever it is that you want. So I look forward to connecting with everybody across the district. And hopefully this Friday, the 21st, we have a House Majority fundraiser up in the Valley. So I will be up in your neck of the woods, Michael, on Friday, the 21st. So I invite everybody to come.
Little solstice action, huh? It's going to be a little Friday solstice action. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah, for coming on board. As always, I posted a link up in the chat room. If you just search Vote Sarah Vance on Google, it's the first link that comes up, or on Facebook, you can find it. It's facebook.com/Sarah Vance Homer if you want to go directly to it. All right. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. As always, it's great to see you, and I appreciate you coming on board. And well, fingers crossed. We see how this election season goes, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks for being part of it today. I appreciate it. All right, my friends, that does it for me today. busy day. Got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to continue. Don't forget, you can always join us on the Common Sense Corps if you want to help support the show. Get access to our private Facebook group and more. That's all dead ahead. We will continue tomorrow. Again, Brad Keithley, Chris Story, our guests. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense. Liberty-based. Free thinking radio. We will see you tomorrow, my friends. Have a good day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.